Hi, I'm Clara Rose. Welcome to this week's episode of the Savvy Flipper Show. I'm your host and business strategist, and this is Larry Vanderhoof. He is our resident expert and construction manager. Welcome.
Thank you.
Are you ready to dive right in today?
I'm ready.
I know you have a comment for us today.
Well, yeah.
We talked about this briefly.
Yeah.
Here's a comment.
It's today we're actually going to be talking about three main points of flipping a house. But before we got to that, I just wanted to kind of clear the air and just let people know that there's so many websites out there talking about flipping homes. Some of them are courses that you can buy or go online and purchase for a few $100s. Some of them are a few $1,000s.
Yeah,
some of them are very expensive. But what I've found out is they're all telling you the same thing. You know, they're telling you, you know, there's flipping houses and then there's long-term rentals and then there's short-term vacation rentals and then there's wholesaling. They tell you basically all the same stuff, but they don't tell you the nuts and bolts that go in between the stuff. You know, it's like telling somebody to build a house. All you got to do is pour some concrete, build some walls, and throw a roof on it.
And voila, there you go.
There's a lot of stuff that comes in between that, and that's what we're here today to talk about.
Yeah.
Is those things that come in between.
Yeah. That's definitely how we're different. Now, there's value to those things. You need to understand wholesaling and understand flipping and understand long-term rentals and the BRRRR method and short-term rentals. You need to understand these things, but you need more than those things. You need to understand the three critical elements necessary to successfully flip a house.
Right. And I guess that's my pet peeve is that it's like they're more interested in collecting your money and moving on to the next person rather than really educating you in every aspect of being a real estate investor.
So, not to knock anybody's program out there, because there's lots of really great ones and some really wonderful people out there, but what we're here to do today is to teach you something that there's not a lot of people out there saying, and that is there are three critical components, and we need to go through them today to talk you through what you need to know. So we call this Flippin Basics. These are the basics of what you need to understand to flip a property and still put some money in your pocket.
Right, and what we'll talk about a little bit today is still just scratching the surface of what you really need to know to be successful and not to be leaving money on the table. That's what it's all about.
That is what it's all about, right? More money in your pocket. Okay, so like Larry always likes to say, if you're not flipping by the numbers, you're leaving money on the table. So he's always saying, don't leave money on the table. It's like, great, all right, how do I not leave money on the table? Well, we're going to just go through the basics of flipping by the numbers. 1, 2, 3. Let's start with number one. What is number one?
Property inspections.
Property inspections. And why in the world is property inspections important? I know we inspect twice, so walk us through that.
Yep, there's a couple of different phases. The initial inspection that you're going to do is once you have found somebody who is interested in selling you their home, be it pre-foreclosure, foreclosure,
probate,
probates, whatever. First thing you're going to have to figure out is how do they match up with the surrounding comps, houses that have been recently sold or renovated, what have you. And the house that you're looking at, how does it compare? Do the comps have granite countertops? Do they have new flooring? So when you're in the house, this is going to be kind of the preliminary inspection, if you will. You're going to just basically, you're going to be looking around, you're going to be making notes. You're not being
rocket science,
right, and you're not trying to be secretive and sneak around the people's house. You're holding conversations, and most people will tell you if they have issues with the house, they'll tell you, oh, we've been having some issues with our AC unit or what have you. But you want to be looking for maybe a floor that's unlevel, that's obviously unlevel, maybe cracks in the ceiling or cracks in the walls or cracks in the floors, things that are obvious at that time and point. You may want to kind of take a cursory look around the exterior of the property to see, the landscape. Is the landscape sloping away from the house, or the water runs off the house, away from the house? Just things like that. That will give you the ability to come up with a number to offer for the house.
So this is before you've even made the offer, your walk through the house to say, is there anything glaringly obvious
Correct.
that could be a little scary, right?
Correct.
Is there things that should scare me off from even making an offer on this house? Because we haven't made the offer yet. We're just there to have a look and give them some numbers and make an offer,
Yep,
right? So
yep.
inspection first, looking around to make sure
Yep.
there's nothing super scary that should scare you away.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. So once we've done that inspection, next we're going to do our estimates for the offer, right? So walk us through that a little bit.
Correct. So, again, it goes back to the comps. You have to compare your house with the surrounding comps, what you're going to be doing in the house. Again, going back to the granite countertops, cabinets, new flooring, those types of things. You need to have a checklist of costs. Whether you're doing an entire kitchen, it's going to cost X per square foot, or maybe you're not doing an entire kitchen. Maybe you're just replacing some upper cabinets or whatnot. You need to know what that number is so that you can make an intelligent offer
Right.
to the homeowner.
So you have at least an idea of what you're going to be into this house for to make it look like the other houses in the area called comps that have sold recently.
Right.
So yours is the same, right?
Right,
So
and there's places that you can find those numbers. We actually have a program that offers those
We
types
do.
of information
We do.
for you, so that you're not going into these houses blind. You have the tools that you need in front of you, where you can literally look at it and say, okay, well, this is going to be a medium of the road rehab, and the cabinets are going to be X per lineal foot. So
and there's two when you're talking about doing estimating. There's actually two times, right? First of all, we're crunching numbers for when you make the offer, right? So you have to have an idea of what this is going to cost you, at least roughly, right?
Correct.
Fairly accurate, roughly estimate, so that you can do a good job negotiating, right?
That's correct. There's also there's two aspects to the inspection process too. The second inspection is going to come in after your offer has been accepted, and you have that, whatever you've agreed to with the homeowner, that 30-day window from the time you made the offer to the time you close to do what I would call a full-blown inspection. And that means you're going from stem to stern on this house. This is
Foundation to roof.
This is where you better be willing to put on a pair of overalls and be willing to crawl into a crawl space if necessary, the attic if necessary, flashlight to look into little cubbies and all types of stuff. I mean, you really need to get down. And I would say that if that's not your bag, then
It's not my bag.
you're probably going to want to hire a professional to come in and do the inspection for you. We talk about leaving money on the table. This is a place where that's money well spent, because you have a
yes.
professional that's going to come in there. If this has got a crawl space, then he's going to be the one down there.
Right.
He's going to be the one crawling around up in the attic looking, for
Right.
mold or insulation or lack of, and so forth.
Or
So,
pests.
if you're not interested in doing that, then I highly recommend that you get a professional inspection done.
Money well spent.
It's going to cost you somewhere probably between $350 to maybe $600.
So I will pay that every day of the week to let somebody else crawl up in the attic or crawl in the basement, the crawl space,
Yeah.
any day of the week. But that's something that you might do. So if that's something that you think, oh, I could totally do this myself, you just need a checklist to follow. So we do offer that in the Flipping by the Numbers course if you're looking for a checklist to follow to get a thorough inspection. I'm going to hire someone, but that's just me. Okay, so let's get back to the estimating renovation. So the first estimating that we did was prior to actually making the offer, right? So we had good numbers for negotiation purposes. But once we've signed on the dotted line and we have an offer, now we want to go back and crunch our numbers for real, right?
You do. You want to come up with some real world numbers, and that may end up causing your original estimate of what it's going to cost to rehab this house. It may cause it to go down. It may cause it to go up.
It may cause it to go up.
It may cause it to go up a little bit. But if you did your job the way that it's laid out, then you're going to be pretty close with your first estimate, with your offer. But beyond that, because you're going to be able to compare costs,
Sure.
You might have estimated, $50 a lineal foot for cabinetry or what have you. But yet, a guy who knows a guy who can get them to you for $35 a lineal foot.
Okay.
But you won't know that until you actually start that process, that estimating process, going component by component by component and finding 2 or 3 or 4, if you have to, estimates and work with the best, and the cheapest isn't always best.
Right, that's true.
You want to work with the best, but the least costly as well.
Yes, when you can.
When you can.
So you're saying we're bringing in at this point, for the second estimating process, we're bringing in contractors to give you real world numbers of what they'll do it for. But you have the added benefit of having already crunched the numbers because you have a list to work off of. So if the contractor says, oh, this is going to cost X, you can say, gosh, it really shouldn't cost that much.
Right, right.
Gives you some leverage.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we've talked about before, not leaving money on the table. So if you know that you can get a new granite countertop for $2,000, but your general contractor comes in and says he can do it for $3,500, you have to understand that anytime you have a contractor buying the material for you and bringing it to the house, he's marking it up.
Yep.
And you have to understand that. So if you want to make more money on your flips, keep more money in your pocket, then you're going to have to do some of the legwork yourself. You're going to have to go out and you're going to have to find the things that you're wanting. You're going to have to find the flooring material, the appliances, whatever it is that you're doing in that house to bring it up to the surrounding comps.
So if you're a newbie, though, and you don't have a lot of experience with that kind of thing, does it make sense in the beginning to just pay the extra and have your contractor sourcing those things for you? Or do you need to get out there and learn this stuff?
I think you need to get out and learn it. I mean, if you're going to turn this into a business, I mean, if this is a one-time thing, and unfortunately with a lot of people, it is a one-time thing because there's a lot of work that goes into it. But if you're serious about turning this into a business, then you need to get out there and you need to do the legwork. You need to go out and figure out. And it won't take but probably a couple, 3 flips before you've got it figured out that, okay, this is what I should be paying for X, and this is what I should be paying for whatever. The problem is a lot of times with a contractor, just like you, they're in this business to make money. So if they can get you to let them purchase all the product and whatnot and bring it on site, then it's probably going to cost you, I'm going to say probably an additional 20, maybe 25% more than what it probably would have normally had you gone out and done the legwork.
And sourced it yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. I mean, it's business. So you have to make the decision. Is it your time, or are you willing to pay that extra money?
Right.
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 So you have to make the choice as a real estate investor.
Yep.
If
you're willing to spend the extra money, then what we're sharing with you today is pointless.
Okay.
I mean, it just
'cause
is.
The premise is to keep more money in your in your pocket, right?
Yep.
Don't leave money on the table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So we've gotten through the inspection talked about the other component, estimating. The final component that's super important is
Project management.
How you manage the project. Absolutely true.
This could be probably the most important aspect of the entire project. And this is where most people lose the most amount of money because they're dependent. If they've hired a contractor to do the work for them and manage their project, then they're dependent on that contractor. He misses a date, it pushes everything back. It pushes subcontractors back. It means you're carrying that property longer. So my advice is to, if you're going to hire a contractor to do the work, that's great, but you need to project manage this thing yourself. You need to be on site. Out of 5 days out of the week, I would say you've got to be on site at least 3 to 4 of those days.
Not all day, right? Just pop in.
No, just walk in. You can be there for a couple hours, just so that these people that are doing the work on your house, they know that you're going to show up. They don't know when, they don't know for how long, but they know you're going to show up, and so that alone is going to keep your project going. Another thing that I would recommend highly is if you're signing a contract with, whether it's a contractor or subcontractors, you get in writing a time frame that this project is going to start on this date and it's going to end on this date. You might give them a 1 week grace period, longer than what they're estimating, but then you need to make them stick to that, because that's where you're going to lose money and that's where you're going to make money.
Yeah, so if you have a schedule for 6 weeks, and most flippers know this, but if you're a new flipper, you may not realize this. There are carrying costs for while you own this before you do whatever you do with it at the end, right?
Correct.
So if you're going to flip it, you get to pay from the day that you signed on the dotted line and purchased it until the day the realtor closes or the title company closes after you've sold it through a real estate agent. During that time, all of the expenses are yours. The property taxes, the insurance, and yes, you better insure it. You know, heaven forbid that it burns down one night while you're sleeping and you didn't have it insured. All of those carrying costs, water, electricity, those are all things that are going to have to be paid. And guess who gets to pay them? You do. So make sure that you factor in your carrying costs. So if your 6-week managed project turns into 12 weeks, now you're paying twice as many carrying costs for twice as long. And that really does make a difference.
Yeah, it absolutely does. This kind of circles back to having, hopefully you've got some kind of a team put in place. You know the contractor that you're going to work with. However, that doesn't mean that you don't go out there and try to find yourself, 3 contractors that you feel like you can work with, or at least build a relationship and find out which one of them you're most comfortable with, the one that you think is being upfront and honest with you. Unfortunately, the construction industry has gotten a bad rap. Sometimes it's justified, sometimes it's not. But find somebody that you feel comfortable with and is going to do the things that he says he's going to do.
And then if you're showing up every day, you're going to know whether he is.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
If you show up once a week, guess what?
Yeah.
You might not realize that you're seriously off track.
Yeah.
Super important. Okay, so let's just recap really quickly before we move on. The 3 critical elements are
Property inspections. You got to plan on 2. The initial one, when you're sitting down talking with the homeowners about the potential of buying their property. The second one is going to be the more intensive home inspection, one that, if you're comfortable doing it yourself, then absolutely do that. There'll be an inspection checklist available to you. If you're not, then absolutely spend that extra $300 or $400 or $500 and hire a professional to come in and do it for you. Chances are he's going to look at things that aren't necessarily even a typical inspection item, but he may tell you, hey, you know what, your water heater looks great, but it is 22 years old. So things like that.
time to think about changing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's estimating. You've got to do your homework. You've got to know what things are going to cost. You're going to have 3 different levels. You're going to have the intermediate, you're going to have the middle of the road cost, and you're going to have the more expensive. And what is the house that you're purchasing? What kind remodeling is it going to require? Again, we have a fairly extensive estimating costs for different projects.
If you need to learn that.
If
Yep.
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 And then finally, project management.
Super
It's
important.
Be there, be there, be there. I mean,
Yep.
you can't just turn this over to somebody and then cross your fingers that they're going to do what they say they're going to do.
Yep. Good recap. Okay. Now we're almost out of time, but I don't want to miss this one, the tool of the week. Tool of the week is not a tool in the sense that you're going to use it to do something in the field. Once again, it's mine. Your project binder. So a project binder is just all of the information about a given project that you're going to take into the field with you when you're checking on your property each day. So it's not the file folder that you leave in the office with the contract and such in it, although you could put a copy of it into the folder, the binder, if you want to take it to the field with you. But all of the information, like your contractor contact information, place for you to jot notes for yourself because you think you're going to remember, but I promise you, you're not going to remember from day to day or week to week what happened. But if you jot it down in your daily binder when you pop in for 30 minutes or however long you're there, just say, Windows still not arrived. Now when you get back to the office, you have a tool with you, so you can say, hey, I need to follow up on this. And the next day when you show up, oh, look, the windows are still not here, right?
Right.
Don't try to keep it all in your head. This is such a valuable tool. Now, this is literally just a binder, right? It's just a cheap binder. I like the ones that have the little hole in the front and they're more squared off. I think they just hold up better and they're easier to pull out of the shelf and grab and go. But it could be this simple. This is like $2 right here. Your best friend. You absolutely need to have a binder for each of your properties. And then I want to talk really quickly before we're done about being savvy from a business perspective. Business savvy. This is important. And of course, as the strategist in the group, I'm going to harp on it the most, but being organized is what I'm going to talk about today. And this is going to save you in the long run, I promise. So I want you to think about the conversation we had last week, creating your intake forms, your filing systems, those kinds of things. We're going to take it a step farther today. So when you are really organized, you are going to use those systems to help make your job easier. So start by creating a contact form for each, which we talked about last week. These are potential deals, people that you've spoken with, where you jot down their information and what kinds of conversation that the two of you had. And then save those in an open contact file. Now, this seems like a no-brainer to me, but I'm surprised at how many people lose these things. So stick them in a file. Then anytime you wonder what potential jobs are coming down the road, just grab your open contact file and have a look. Everything you need to know about that person is right there in the file. Then, if they become a deal, you sign the deal and you've got a contract in place, now you're going to create a file not based on the person's name, which is kind of a natural tendency. People will, oh, this was the Smith house. No, it's not the Smith house anymore because you bought it, right? So a file folder for the office that has all of the legal paperwork in it by property address. And then, of course, your property binder that you're going to take into the field with you has all the pertinent information in it for the project. Definitely anything from estimates from contractors are going to go in the file folder at home. But I would you could put them in a file to take with you in the binder if you'd like as well.
Yeah, any and all communications that you have with your contractor need to be kept in that file as well. You need to write these things down, what he said, when he said it, and the content, so that should it ever pop back up, you can say, well, wait a minute, right here, you said,
let's see.
Why don't I have permits yet?
Right. Look at the binder. Oh, on Friday, when I was here, you said X.
Yeah.
Now, it sounds like we're making out contractors to be bad people when we're not at all making them out to be bad people. But you're not the only project that they're working on.
That's exactly
right?
true.
So just be aware that they're a business too, and you're just a piece of their life. So if you have good notes they're going to see, oh, these guys are on top of it. And you can say, oh, you last said this. I see that hasn't happened yet. When can we expect that to be corrected? Right, so it's just checks and balances. This is going to be your best friend. So while it's not a very exciting or cool tool of the week, it's definitely a super important one for being organized. Lots of other pieces to staying organized in the office, but if you'll follow these 3 steps, it's going to save you in the long run so much headache. First one, getting that contact form. Now, I've seen this. I'm not going to harp on it too long, but I've seen people use sticky notes, right? And so then the sticky note gets misplaced, right? Or you have 3 sticky notes for the client. You're on the phone with somebody and you're jotting down on the back of an envelope. I've seen back of the envelope stuff, right? As I work over the years with business owners, I've seen a fair number of organizational issues, and that's one of them. No singular place where they capture information about their leads. So I call it a contact form, or you could call it an intake form, but as you have the conversation with that homeowner, whether it's on the phone or it's in person, you want to fill out that form, have it on a clipboard where you can have it handy with you when you're on the phone or when you're at their house, so that you get all of the information, and bonus, you don't have to remember what to ask them.
That's
right?
correct.
Because it's on the form, right? So you just fill in the blanks.
Yep.
Right?
That's all about being a business.
It's all about treating this like a business. Now that form goes into the open contact file, right? So when that person calls you and says, hey, I really would like to move forward on this deal, right? What did I do with that form? Oh, I know. I did what Clara told me, and I put it in the open file. Right?
Do what Clara tells
Do
you.
what Clara tells you. And then when it becomes a job, you make it into a file folder that goes in to your files in the office, and you make yourself a binder. Whew. Okay, I'm done harping on you about that. All right. So last but not least, we want to remind you that coming up in June, we have our workshop. It's on a Saturday. If you are interested in being in our next workshop, where we teach you everything that you need to know,
This
right?
stuff a little more detailed.
A little more detailed. It's free. You can hop over to beflippingsavvy.com and get registered for that. And we will see you in June for that. And then, of course, if you are interested in taking your education one step farther with us, we'll be offering the Flipping by the Numbers course there as well. And we are out of time, but thank you guys for joining us once again. We'll see you guys next week for the Savvy Flipper Show.